headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador. This is From the South, and I'm Suni Gray. We begin in Colombia, where students protesting for an improved higher education budget have been met with heavy police repression. Riot police reportedly attacked protesters with tear gas canisters, batons, and even their fists. The students demonstrated throughout the day and were later joined by indigenous groups and workers' unions who are against President Ivan Duque's tax reform, which could raise the cost of basic goods. The Security Secretary of Bogota confirmed that 35 people were arrested and 14 of them are awaiting the judicial process. Our correspondent in Bogota, Tatiana Potella, has documented a police officer attacking one student from the demonstration. The footage shows the officer assaulting the protester. The incident occurred in north of the capital, Bogota. Our correspondent in Colombia, Tatiana Potella, gives us more details on the student protests.
Continuamos aquí desde el norte de la capital del país, desde donde hoy varios estudiantes se encontraban.
We are just north of Colombia's capital, where students have been protesting and were violently attacked by security forces. This is the sad reality these youths have to deal with. Just a few minutes ago, in fact, we observed a student protesting, and suddenly the security forces descended and they began to beat him repeatedly. Students had to intervene to stop the policeman from hitting the young man. As you can see, these young students have been detained by police without explanation. Indigenous people and labor union organizations have also joined in the protest. So far, there are 6 people arrested, while 1 student has been severely injured. Some young protesters have been held by security forces who were dressed in civilian wear. Security also used tear gas and tasers on students. This is a human rights violation.
Social organizations in Chile have protested the government's violent crackdown of the Mapuche people that left 1 man dead on Wednesday. Police used water cannons and tear gas against the demonstrators to push back around 100 protesters outside the government headquarters. Social leaders are now calling on citizens to take action against state persecution, as well as the continued appropriation of their lands. President Sebastián Pinero pledged an investigation into the police regarding the murder of 1 young Mapuche activist.
Since 1990, we have had many Mapuche deaths across all governments. There is a systematic logic by all sectors of the right wing that sides with landowners and dictates that if a Mapuche does not bend to the will of the state, they will be killed.
We need all unions to call on a mass demonstration across the entire country. We need to fight against the repression the Mapuche face. They must be allowed to be self-governed. Their lands must be demilitarized and the jungle command must be disbanded.
And the Interior Minister, Andreas Chadwick, has also pledged to investigate the case. Social organizations want the operations carried out by Jungle Command in the south of the country to end.
Right now, our main commitment, and we are focusing on this, is to clarify the facts as soon as possible, in a total and complete way.
And our correspondent in Santiago, Thierry Valenzuela, brings us more on the case.
Camilo Catrillanca was shot in the head by police forces inside Mapuche territories. According to the Interior Minister, Andreas Chadwick, the police operation was trying to prevent Mapuche community members from committing violent acts. They accused Mapuche people of stealing 3 vehicles from residents of a town nearby. And as a result, they deployed an operation with more than 300 security forces and 2 helicopters to fight over the community of Temucucuy. Social organizations questioned the real reason behind the operation and made a call to end the criminalization of protest, as well as of police repression and violence against the Mapuche people.
A migrant walking with the caravan to the United States has died of heat stroke. Misael Pais was attempting to cross the border through the Arizona desert with his uncle by his side. Border Patrol agents tried to get to Pais after his uncle called 911, but he died before they were able to get to them. Both had walked 3,000 kilometers from Guatemala.
It's a great loss for the family because he was the one supporting the family. He was everything to the family and he wanted to give my parents and my family a better life. He made a lot of sacrifice to go over there. We want over to go there, to the United States. We all alone for the American dream. We all want to go, even if I want to go.
1,700 people traveling with the migrant caravan have arrived to the border city of Tijuana. Now they're waiting in shelters with the hope that the U.S. government grants them asylum or refugee status. However, to do so with the new federal rule, migrants will have to enter the U.S. through official ports. And as the migrant caravan draws near, U.S. forces are reinforcing the border fence with the city of Tijuana. Nearly 6,000 troops have been deployed by President Donald Trump. They've erected barriers and razor wire fences across the border. And as more and more people from the migrant caravan approach Tijuana, residents of the city share their mixed feelings about additional security at the border fence.
Many people disagree, but they are still human beings. They have to live somewhere.
Unfortunately, it is necessary. The reasons are regrettable and all that, but everyone defends what's theirs. That's it.
Among those migrants who arrived at El Chaparral, the port of entry in Tijuana, are 78 members of the LGBT community. They've added their names to a list that will be used by U.S. immigration officials to hear individual requests for political asylum. The small group broke off from the main caravan days ago and have reportedly faced discrimination throughout their journey. Our correspondent in Tijuana, Alina Duarte, tells us more about their situation.
Here, in the northern part of Tijuana, a shelter has been set up in a sports center for Central American migrants. More than 1,300 people have arrived so far to the city, but buses are still coming, so the numbers will likely increase. These families have decided to seek asylum. Authorities say that there are more than 2,000 applications awaiting processing. President Donald Trump has said on several occasions that there were a lot of criminals in the caravan. So far, all we have seen, though, is families fleeing from violence in their homeland.
Time for the first break of this newscast. More news after this.
Enjoy our programming from Monday to Friday, where you'll find the best information on culture, innovation, conservation, human well-being. Keep up to date on the latest innovations in science and technology with Atomun. The habits and knowledge you need to live a healthy lifestyle are on Guide Your Body. Environmental consciousness is required to preserve our Earth. Undergo your transformation on Green Zone. All about equity, diversity, and respect for identities on By Gender. Cultural manifestations, the art in all its forms and the stories of real lives. Every day we feature a wide variety of content. Only on Telesur, the news source from Latin America and the Caribbean.
Welcome back. Peru's public prosecutor has opened a new investigation against the former president, Alan Garcia, for alleged money laundering linked to the Odebrecht case. Garcia has been questioned at the public prosecutor's offices for the Lima Metro case, in which Odebrecht delivered around $24 million in bribes. The former president has been barred from leaving the country. Small groups of demonstrators in support of and against Garcia gathered outside the public ministry. So let's take a deeper look at this case in this report.
Once again, former President Alan Garcia went to the prosecutor's office to be questioned. But this time it wasn't as a witness, it was as a suspect.
There has been no questioning, because once again, it was suspended. Nothing else. Thank you.
Garcia is being investigated over government concessions to Odebrecht for the metro construction project, in which he allegedly took bribes from the company. Odebrecht's executives even admitted to paying $24 million in bribes.
Garcia not only showed interest in selecting trusted officials to work in the ministry so they could facilitate the project, but he was also directing things behind the scenes to favor Odebrecht with Lima's metro.
The former anti-corruption ombudsman investigated the case and alleged that Odebrecht paid off Garcia.
One of the ways they received bribes was by making them look legitimate, by taking off percentages of real payments and then fabricating receipts, making it all look legal.
Although Garcia denies any knowledge of bribes at his level, which 85% of Peruvians don't believe according to polls, he admits mid-level staff may have been imprisoned for bribery.
They have all been linked to corruption. There is clear evidence he's dirty.
Throw him in jail. It's as simple as that. That's what he deserves for how much he hurt our country.
The prosecutor's office has asked the judiciary to ban him from leaving the country so he doesn't escape justice.
Staying in Peru, a confrontation has occurred between opposing demonstrators over gender education reform. LGBT activists clashed with protesters from the Catholic Church before security forces arrived. Critics from the church are accusing the authorities of promoting homosexuality. Argentina is commemorating the one-year anniversary of the disappearance of the Ara San Juan submarine, with relatives urging for the search to continue. President Mauricio Macri led a tribute ceremony in Mar del Plata, the place where relatives of the 44 missing crew members still gathered to demand answers. They also want the authorities to be held responsible for the disaster.
What can I do? I'm disappointed by what the president has said. He said they are to look for the sub, but with what? Our Navy doesn't have anything.
Regional leaders are discussing matters such as growth, development, and stronger international cooperation at the 26th Ibero-American Summit in Guatemala. Heads of state and government leaders from Spain, Portugal, and Latin America believe that multilateralism is the way forward. They also agree that raising economic standards is the key to securing Ibero-America's future. The two-day summit is aimed at building closer cooperation ties.
What we need to have is inclusive development. We need sustainable development. This is a lesson that we have to take from the economic crisis we are going through, even what we have to do with economic growth and the pillars of them development. I believe in a multilateral order for cooperation and collaboration, for a more shared effort than what has been done in the past. We have to move forward to narrow inequality and to open up opportunities for a global society, regardless of where that be.
Bolivian President Evo Morales has been awarded an honorary doctorate by the Guatemalan University of San Carlos. Morales has received his honor in recognition of his defense of social movements and indigenous people. The Bolivian president is in Guatemala for the 26th Ibero-American Summit. He also met the indigenous leader and Nobel Peace Prize laureate Rigoberta Menchú.
This honorary degree is not for me, but for social movement in Bolivia. I will not achieve it without my indigenous brothers in Guatemala, brothers of the social movement, the labor movement, of all the social sectors. When people join forces, nothing is impossible.
The president of El Salvador, Salvador Sanchez Cerén, has launched a new national policy for indigenous people. It's a plan that will help a section of the society that has historically been excluded.
With an ancestral ceremony, the Nahuatl, Pipil, Lenca, and Cacahuira indigenous peoples celebrate the announcement of a public policy that will work to enforce their economic, social, and cultural rights.
This is the starting point to build, little by little, a solid pyramid, so to speak, for our rights.
In a special event at the presidential palace, President Salvador Sanchez Cerén gave the document to indigenous representatives. This happened after talks with different organizations of indigenous people and state institutions. The policy has strategies to improve social, cultural, economic, and environmental issues.
This is one of the most important legal actions in the history of El Salvador because it consolidates the end of centuries of exclusion for this noble and brave sector of our country. I express my respect to all indigenous communities and organizations and of their success, a product of their effort and tenacity.
Since June 2014, indigenous people in the country have been officially recognized, and now they are launching programs to revive their language, traditions, and ancestral cultures. The identity of Native people and their link to Mother Earth has influenced strategies for sustainability in the use of natural resources.
I will demand that everyone who was there to receive this document, and to the current and coming governments, to fulfill this policy, to not to keep this document in a drawer, because it has taken a lot of sacrifice to get to this point. We've gone hungry for too long.
El Salvador is a multi-ethnic state, and now it has made a compromise to respect and to strengthen cultural diversity and people's rights. For this reason, the intersectional group of indigenous peoples has been created. It will monitor the fulfillment of this national policy.
Guyana's opposition has filed a no-confidence vote against the government. They are citing several allegations of corruption. The opposition leader, Jack Deo, has submitted the motion to Parliament against the David Granger-led administration. Speaking at a news conference, he says the motion is premised on government's actions, which have led to the loss of thousands of jobs in the sugar industry, tax hikes, and alleged corruption in health and infrastructure sectors. An International Monetary Fund official has been appointed the chief fiscal advisor to Jamaica's finance minister. The fund's deputy secretary, the Jamaican Calvin MacDonald, will help to shape macro-fiscal capacity. The island is expected to eventually graduate to a non-borrowing relationship with the IMF. The Washington-based institution has predicted Jamaica's economic growth to reach 1.4% by March 2019, with a further medium-term projection of 2% growth in GDP. Less than 1 month after Trinidad and Tobago experienced widespread flooding, rain devastated several communities in North, Central, and South Trinidad. The Met Office has issued an orange alert for riverine flooding, and citizens have been advised to stay away from flood-prone areas and roadways. The South Oropouche River was among several water channels that burst their banks. Landslips were reported along major thoroughfares. And the cultural activist and playwright Pearl Entu Springer and the soca star Marshall Montano have received honorary doctorates from the University of Trinidad and Tobago. They each earned the Distinguished Award for their decades-long contributions to society in the arts. Montano is considered one of the most prolific entertainers in the region. And for her part, Entu Springer called for local history to be included in the school curriculum, and she also called for greater recognition to be paid to the late Calypso icon, the Mighty Shadow, who died last month. Time now for the second break of this newscast. More news in a minute.
Telesur brings you special interviews with social and political personalities. Monday, from Washington. Tuesday, from Mexico. Wednesday, from Caracas. Thursday, from Quito. Friday, from Havana. Analysis about our continent's reality. Weekdays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. Malawian and Tanzanian soldiers have been killed in the Democratic Republic of Congo during an offensive on a militia group east of the country. The soldiers were on a United Nations peacekeeping mission. Both the Malawian government and the United Nations have confirmed the incident. The UN said the soldiers died during a joint operation between its peacekeepers and the Congolese military against a Ugandan rebel group. Clashes have erupted in Guinea's capital of Conakry after a protest by opposition supporters. Groups of young people threw stones at the police, who responded with tear gas. The march was aimed at denouncing violence committed by security forces. They say at least 100 Guinean citizens have been murdered by the defense and security forces.
You know why we are marching, because we are in a country where freedoms are being violated. We are in a country where laws are being violated. We are in a country where the government doesn't respect its agreements.
A man in South Africa has been sentenced to life in prison, convicted of rape. 36-year-old Thulasizwe Dlamini was caught red-handed by police officers at a graveyard in the city of Durban. He was robbing a 53-year-old woman after having raped her. Police said the man drove the woman to the graveyard after offering her a lift. Time now to take a look at some of the other stories making headlines around the world.
Cambodian people and officials are celebrating the life sentence handed down to two leaders of the Khmer Rouge. They were found guilty of genocide almost 40 years after the fall of a regime that presided over the death of a quarter of the population. Former President Khieu Samphan, 87, and brother number 2, so-called Nuon Chea, 92, was sentenced by an unbacked court.
We feel happy that the government prosecutes that the Black Cloud uniform group Khmer Rouge. In the 1975, they forced all of us to work without enough food to eat and without medicine.
The disruption of Finland's GPS signal during the NATO war games came from Russian territory, Finnish foreign minister has informed. Russia dismissed an early allegation from the Finnish prime minister that they could intentionally disrupt the signal during the NATO training in Norway. Finland Air Navigation Services issued a warning for air traffic because of a large-scale GPS interruption. Forces from 31 countries participated in NATO's largest exercises in decades, close to Russia. At least 42 people have been killed in Zimbabwe after a bus caught fire. More than 20 people were also injured and taken to the hospital. The bus was traveling in the south of the country when it caught fire overnight after a suspected gas tank leak.
The language of coding has become a great way for South African youth to plug into the future. Primary school teams competed against each other armed with basic coding blocks, inventor kits and laptops. They belong to a coding club that is spreading across the country. And in a country where over 50% of young people are unemployed, coding clubs also boost the chances of students finding a job when they graduate.
Since education is changing, kids, they need to move with the dynamics of education, and education is now taking, programming is the way forward. So we also need to prepare the kids as they move forward into the fourth industrial revolution of education.
I hope that I can be able to invent new things in the world and help people who are sick and born premature and other things.
And Somalia is holding its first boxing tournament after 40 years. After years of conflict, fans hope that this competition is a positive sign of the country's recovery. Organizers say the increase in security and the improvement of the political situation made them launch the event. Now athletes hope to see more youth participating in the sport. And Morocco has inaugurated the first high-speed railway actually in Africa. King Mohammed VI opened the 200-kilometer railway that runs through Morocco, connecting the cities of Tangier and Kenitra. He was joined by the French President Emmanuel Macron as the high-velocity line has been built with the support of France's National Railway Company. And that has led us to the end of this news brief. For these and many other stories, you can find them on our website at talisiaenglish.net. And join us on social media because we are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Talisia English, I'm Suni Gray. Thank you for watching.